totally understandable. So as we go, we're getting feedback from students who were here at our last meeting, parents. We're going to be using online tools to get more feedback from a wider array of parents. And of course, teachers and administrators. And we've really made an effort to get more teachers, in addition to our administrators, onto the group as well, based on feedback we've had. So if you are coming in at 6 o'clock tonight, just some context, we have a steering committee for this work that meets for about an hour beforehand, before the regular committee meetings. And we run through the agenda, we give feedback in terms of what activities would be best. We'd also get, today we had a really good deep conversations about what are the purpose of grades, how we set kids up for success, and kind of went down a few rabbit holes in a good way, just talking about some of the different tangents that are involved in the work since it's so complicated. But this group is meant to do something similar, but also to learn. So just to kind of orient you, we're really in like a learning phase of the work. So if you're just coming for the first time, that's fine. Not a big deal if you were not here earlier. We're just going to onboard you and we're just going to keep going. We have a text that we're using to sort of anchor our learning, but this kind of works in two phases. We have learning now, and we'll be making some decisions about what to propose to our Board of Education about a grading system early on in the spring, like near the end of the winter, for something that would go into effect next fall. So that's kind of the cadence of the work. If you've been here before, thanks for being back. If you're here for the first time, if you have any questions that got caught up along the way, please pull me aside. And then finally, if you have not met Margot, this is Margot Sekeli. She will be facilitating our work. Margot is a consultant from the Catalyst for Educational Change and has done this work both within a school district and as a consultant for multiple school districts. And so we feel like it's very valuable, her leadership so far in facilitation of our conversations, and ultimately when we get past the learning phase into some decision-making phases, she'll add a ton of value to our process in that place as well. So Margot, thanks for being back with us.
Thank you, happy to be here.
Here you go.
I love it, thank you. Thank you. Fun microphone. So thank you again for being here. We have an agenda here that we're going to be following. My deck is in our participant folder. So the QR code here will take you to our full participant folder. There's also a bit.ly that will take you to the participant folder. And then within the participant folder, there's a separate folder that says October 4th meeting. So all of the things that we'll be using tonight are in that folder. This is our agenda. We're going to do just a brief update, which I think Adam has already done a good chunk of that. For our new members, we're going to finalize the norms that we worked on last time. We're going to take a minute to just review the Hopes and Fears Jamboard that we worked on last time, because we want to make sure that we're addressing them, or will be addressing those things throughout our work together. We're going to spend some time talking about the book study, and then we're going to be talking about the book study process, because we got some feedback from the steering committee about how we should be running this, with some really good feedback and some modifications for how we're going to be doing that, that hopefully will make this a more manageable situation for everybody. Then we're going to spend a good chunk of time delving into types of grading. So we'll talk about that a little bit tonight, and then we're going to continue that work at our October 25th meeting, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so that's our plan for tonight. Our committee norms are listed up here on the slide deck, but they're also in that note-taking deck. So if you have your computer and you want to open up that note-taking deck, you can see it there as well. So just take a quick look, take a good look at these norms. Are they printed on the back of your agenda? No. Oh, okay. Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. Just look at the screen. Something else. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, the QR code on the agenda that Adrienne is passing out will take you directly to the note-taking doc, and that also has these norms listed on the top as well. So what I want you to do once you're organized and settled is read through all of these, identify if there's a norm that you cannot live with, identify if there's a norm that you think we should add, or identify a norm that is unclear. take a minute or two and talk about that with your table as well. So again, any norm or professional behaviors you can't live with, anything that is unclear, or anything that you believe should be added. These are put together from the norms we developed last time we met. I wordsmithed a couple just to incorporate the language that you used, and so this comes from you from last time, so we don't need to spend a ton of time. In good shape. If anything comes up between now and our next meeting, let one of us know, and we can address it at our next meeting. So, next thing we're going to do is look at our hopes and fears. This is not a great picture of it. The link to the Jamboard should be in that participant folder for our September 20th meeting if you want to get a closer look. But when we look at our hopes say to grow and learn, to reach the best result in our grading system and how its end result, and I'm guessing it's end result. I hope to gather many different perspectives on the topic of grading systems. I hope to get more clarity about assessment and develop a much, and I don't know, that must have not been finished, but I'm gonna pretend it says develop a much better system that works for all of us. I don't know what that is, but if you typed that and you remember what your thought was, that's okay. Okay, so my perspective, I hope all that too. That's the goal of this committee. Adam, any thoughts from you around these hopes? Fears were that the time it takes to reteach and relearn and when will this happen, and then too time consuming. And those are really valid and important considerations. And so we talked about this being a multi-phase process. This is a learning year. The goal that we have this year is to create an updated recommendation for board policy, and then to start building a system and then a phase-in process to update how we are providing feedback to students. Adam, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think just we have some kind of non-negotiables around the work that we've talked about a little bit. And I think one of the hopes aspects is that we'll have a system that accomplishes all of those sort of non-negotiables. So whether it comes to students being supported, but also teachers being supported, having value for parents, having value towards learning, not just have a system for the sake of having one, but one that actually contributes to kids owning learning and being able to learn at higher rates. So that would be like the why behind the work in terms of like really a global hope, which is really important. I mean, this is going to impact a lot of people really dramatically. So, you know, the hope is that the time spent leads to something really substantive that's valuable.
This Jamboard is still available in our September 20th meeting folder. So if you have any additional thoughts you want to add to it, I'll take a look at it prior to our next meeting, and then we can look at those again. So if you do have additional things, just add them there. I think
and extras, which were not necessarily bad habits. I think we talked about that, constant behaviors towards wanted, but not necessarily graded in the same way as academics. I think many months ago we talked about having like a parallel grading system with the grade behaviors separately, grade the academic expectations separately. So I was just showing that, you know, within the subject, different teachers are giving different grades to different assignments, and that sets up equitable grading practices across the subject.
absolutely, that's a great point. Thank you.
A lot of the things that we discussed were coming back to the next step, so the collegiate or career-based level, and making sure that what we're doing at the K-12 level is going to reflect what they do later on, past when they graduate from our buildings. And that kind of steps, we got there by talking through like, where does failure come from? What does the cost of failure mean? We talked a little bit about how teacher relationship could affect gradebook as well with a student, and how we are shifting towards a progress grading. And that does seem to promote growth mindset, but do all colleges use that model, and is that something that's seen past high school?
Side note, colleges and universities will take what we give them to make their decisions. It's not the other way around. It's not that colleges and universities have a system that they've created for acceptance. They've taken what we give them and create a system around that, and then add additional things that they want. So for example, the essay, those come from the colleges because they want that writing sample that we don't provide them. So I want us to remember that we think they're telling us what they need. They're not. They're taking what we give them and making it work by weighted grades and things like that. Just a second. All right, another table.
I was just gonna, if I could.
Yeah, please.
Jumping into the whole, what do colleges accept? The state of Illinois has a law that passed 2 years ago that every single college in the state of Illinois has to come up with multiple measures on accepting students into the program and accepting students into credit bearing courses. So she's absolutely right. Whatever we tell them and give them, they will accept.
They don't trust what we give them anyway.
No,
I
they
would
don't.
say a lot of scholarships ask for top 10% though. Right now.
Right, scholarships can be different. Thank you. All right, anybody else with book study comments? Yeah.
When we actually met, one of the conversations that we had was around the gap, and just by reconsidering the rating system, that you could immediately close the gap, or closely close the gap just by creating a consistency and a standard among how you actually implement grades.
Thank you. Anyone else? Something different? Something to add?
Something our group brought up was this whole aspect of college and career ready, which is obviously great, but we felt that career ready was sort of being undershadowed by college only, and that so many of the skills, I mean, obviously in CTE, but you need math for a lot of these things in science. How much of that is being undershadowed by just the thought that you need to go to college and take up student loans, where there's other avenues such as trade schools.
Key point. And we shouldn't make all of our decisions based on college admissions or college acceptance. Absolutely, because it is important, but not one great point.
One of the first comments in our group, in answer to the question about what is your vision for grading, and Joy, thank you. The first thing she said, and I told her that resonated the most with me. I think you said it so well. Okay, what I said.
You know, because today is the day. I kind of was thinking about that first question, and I said, if you could figure out how to motivate our kids intrinsically to want to, instead of the stresses and pressures and letters and things of this nature, if we could acknowledge the fact that we're all a work in progress and how we're going to travel along this journey of learning more. Because, you know, for me to teach 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds and expect them to know what they want to do with the rest of their life is obviously not going to happen. But even just to problem solve or be a better communicator or look at a problem and try to figure out possibilities would be better than you get an A, you get a. To me, the feedback's part and the acknowledgement that we don't all know everything about everything. We have to have to work through something. I think is more valuable than here's the greatest. Oh, and then they also did say, so I can say, you know, we're all a work in progress. We're all working on this journey. Here's a new thing that you've never seen before. And then their response is, yeah, but my mom says, or yeah, but my dad says. And I'm like, yeah, yes, I can appreciate that, but let's try to look at it another way. But at the end of the day, it's still, oh, the student, I can't get my phone back until I get a better grade in this class. So that part, unfortunately, is just another sort of add to the list of problems.
You know, one of the tables had a very similar conversation about teacher mindsets too, because we have people that are in very traditional mindsets and thinking about grades as rewards or punishment. And so we have to think about everyone involved with this and thinking about what is it we really want to accomplish and how do we help people think differently before we make a decision. To say, let's think of all these things instead of saying, nope, this is how it's always done. 90 to 100 is an A, and that's the only way we can think about it. We want to at least have everyone here to consider something. Okay, absolutely. Applications and slightly different ways of doing things. But the most common and generally used grading systems are your traditional grading system, which can be norm referenced or criterion referenced or a combination of both. Norm referenced, rating on a curve. We've all heard of that, right? Criterion referenced would be based on standard and a percentage of that standard. Then there's proficiency-based grading, competency-based grading, and standards-based grading. Those are generally the most commonly used systems. There's similarities and differences in them, and we're going to dive a little more deeply into two of them. So each table is going to be given either traditional to focus on or proficiency-based grading. The first two on our list, traditional and proficiency-based grading. Then what you're going to do in your group is you are going to look for information that will explain what that system is. What are the key components of it? What are the things that work best in that system? What are the struggles with that system? You're going to look for resource materials. You are then going to prepare a visual. We have markers on your tables. We have chart paper over here on the two tables over here. So each group will create a visual. Then what we're going to do is have one traditional grading table and one proficiency-based table meet together and teach each other what they learned. Then we're going to hang up our visuals and we're going to do a gallery walk. So we'll talk through that part a little bit later. So right now it is 5 to 7. At 7:25, we're going to come back together. So you'll have a half an hour to work on this. So table 3, you are going to be doing traditional grading. You, table 6, are going to be doing proficiency-based grading. Traditional grading, proficiency-based grading, traditional grading, proficiency-based grading, okay? Now, part of what you're gonna see, particularly those that are looking for information on proficiency-based grading, you will see that occasionally conflated with competency-based grading, and sometimes even standards-based grading, but usually competency-based. They're not the same, but there are similarities. So make sure that you're looking specifically at proficiency-based grading, okay? Everybody know what they're doing? Okay, 25 minutes, I'm gonna set a timer, and then spread out if you need to, use another table, whatever you need to do. What we're gonna do now is we are going to consider what we're calling the benefits and the barriers. So what you're going to do in your table, you're going to go to your table number, you're going to consider traditional grading, and then you're going to consider proficiency-based grading. Now, we know you don't have all the information you need to know to be expert on all of these things. But from what you've learned so far, we want you as a table to identify what things are the benefits from this particular type of grading system, assessing, feedback providing system, and then what would the barriers be? And when we think about barriers, I want you to think specifically around the things that we've identified as our non-negotiables. Things like clear communication to families and to students, easy enough or realistic to manage by the teachers, provide meaningful quality feedback in an equitable manner for all students, Consider those things in particular, although there may be other barriers to consider as well. So I'm going to set a timer, and I'm going to give each of your tables about 8 minutes to identify benefits and barriers.